87 missed calls from a man who couldn't miss one vacation. That's the number I stared at from a hospital bed in St. Augustine Regional, Memphis, Tennessee, on a gray Tuesday morning in October while a busted rib made every breath feel like a personality test. My phone screen kept lighting up like a slot machine that only paid out in disappointment. I didn't answer a single one. I let it ring. The accident had happened the night before, Monday 6:42 p.m., corner of Poplar Avenue and East Parkway, 2 blocks from the dry cleaner I'd been going to for 11 years. A red light I respected, a delivery truck that didn't, 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and what the attending physician, a young woman who looked like she graduated high school last spring, called a significantly contused kidney. I asked her what that meant in English. She said it meant my kidney was having a very bad week. Join the club. Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. My name is Raymond Parker. I am 68 years old. I built Parker Logistics from a single leased truck and a prayer into a $14 million regional freight company over 31 years. I have 2 sons. I raised both of them. Only one of them is mine by blood. That distinction, I was learning at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, means less than you'd think, and more than you can imagine. I called Gary first. That's the thing nobody tells you about being a father. You always call the difficult one first, like some part of you is still trying to prove something. He picked up on the second ring. That should have told me everything. Dad. His voice was the particular kind of warm it gets when he wants something or feels guilty. After 41 years, I know the difference. Barely. I'm in the hospital, I said. St. Augustine Regional. Room 214. Silence. Not the concerned kind. The calculating kind. How bad? He asked. 3 ribs. Wrist. Kidney. Okay. Another pause. I could hear Lucy in the background, her voice low and quick, the way she talks when she's coaching him through something. Those 2 have been married 3 years and she still treats every conversation like a chess match. Okay, Dad, here's the thing. Gary. No, just listen. The Maldives trip, we leave Wednesday, and the resort has this policy where if you cancel inside 72 hours, we lose the whole deposit, and Lucy already packed. And it's not like you're dying, right? The doctor said you're stable, so. Son. I said it quiet, the way I used to say it when he was 12 and lying to my face about his report card. Go on your trip, he exhaled, relief wrapped in the thinnest layer of guilt. You sure? No. Positive. We'll call every day, I promise. Lucy says hi. And Dad, get some rest, okay? You work too hard. He hung up before I could respond to that particular masterpiece of irony. I, Raymond Parker, lying in a hospital bed with a fractured wrist and a bruised kidney, being told by the man who received $6,000 from me every single month for 9 years, that I work too hard. I put the phone face down on the bedside table. I stared at the ceiling. 68 years old and still being surprised by this man. That's on me. The nurse on my floor was a broad-shouldered woman from Shreveport named Brenda, who called everyone baby and meant it sincerely every single time, which is harder than it sounds. She came in around 8 to check my drip, saw the expression on my face, and said, "You want to talk about it or you want me to pretend I don't see it?" "Neither," I said. "Okay, baby." She adjusted the IV, made a note on her tablet, and was halfway to the door before I said, "My son's going to the Maldives." She stopped, turned around slow. "While you're in here, he says the resort has a cancellation policy." Brenda looked at me for a long moment, with the particular expression of a woman who has heard everything and is still, occasionally surprised. She said, which in context was a complete sentence. After she left, I made 2 more calls. The first was to my accountant, a precise little man in East Memphis named Ben, who'd been handling my finances for 19 years and never once asked a question he didn't already know the answer to. I told him to suspend the monthly transfer to Gary's account, effective immediately, indefinitely. Ben said, "Amount? 6,000. Done." He paused. "Anything else?" "Not today." The second call was to Prestige Home Nursing, a private agency on Union Avenue. I arranged for a live-in nurse starting Wednesday. Her name was Denise. She had 17 years of experience, and a voice on the phone that made me feel like everything was going to be handled correctly, which at that particular moment was worth more than the Maldives, the resort deposit, and Gary's entire personality combined. I didn't know it yet, but those 2 phone calls were going to change everything. Turner showed up at 4:23 p.m. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock the way you do when you're lying still and there's nothing else to do, counting minutes like loose change. The door opened, and there he was. No call ahead, no dramatic entrance. Just Turner, 36 years old, still wearing his work jacket from the freight yard out in Bartlett, where he'd been since 6 that morning, with a crease on his left cheek from the hard hat he wore on the floor. He looked at me in the bed, looked at the wrist brace, looked at the drip stand and the monitor, and the untouched Jell-O cup on the tray table that Brenda had left with genuine optimism. He pulled a chair from the corner of the room, didn't ask if it was okay, didn't make a production of it, sat down, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, and said, "What do you need?" Not "Are you okay?" Not "Oh, I would have come sooner," but "What do you need?" 4 words. I've had eulogies that moved me less. "How'd you find out?" I asked. "Mrs. Pettigrew from your street called the yard." He shrugged, said she saw the ambulance Monday night. "I couldn't get away till now." I nodded. Mrs. Pettigrew was 74, grew tomatoes on her porch, and had the neighborhood surveillance instincts of a Cold War intelligence officer. I'd never been so grateful for her in my life. "Gary know?" Turner asked. "Yeah, didn't have to." That's the thing about Turner. He's never needed things spelled out. Not since he was 9 years old, sitting in my kitchen in Orange Mound, 3 days after his mother died, eating cereal at midnight because he couldn't sleep. And instead of crying, he'd looked up at me and said, "What do we do now, Uncle Ray?" Practical. Heartbroken and practical. Maggie had been gone 11 days by then. My little sister, 31 years old, an aneurysm that nobody saw coming, which is the only kind there is. She'd been a single mother, no father in the picture, no family left but me. Turner had nobody. So Turner had me. I never told Gary I was leaving Turner anything. I told myself it was to keep the peace, to not show favoritism, to not make holidays uncomfortable. I believed that story for a long time. Lying in room 214 on a Tuesday afternoon, with my phone logging call number 62 from a man in the Maldives, and Turner sitting 3 feet away asking what I needed, I didn't believe it anymore. "You eaten?" Turner asked. "They brought something. I didn't touch it. I'll go down to the cafeteria." He stood up, already reaching for his wallet. "You still hate mushrooms." I had to look away, at the window, at the Memphis skyline going gray in the October dusk. 68 years old, 2 sons, and I'd spent 30 years making sure the wrong one never felt less than. "Yeah," I said, "still hate mushrooms." He nodded and walked out. No drama, no performance. Just a man going to get his father dinner. My phone buzzed. Call 63. I turned it face down. I had a lawyer's appointment to make. I had a will that was 17 years old, and I had a lot of thinking to do about the difference between what a man is given and what a man earns. I didn't know it yet, but by Friday Gary was going to find out the difference too. Wednesday arrived without apology. I'd been awake since 4:30, watching Memphis crawl from black to gray through the hospital window, cataloging every bad decision I'd made since 1980. The kidney still ached. The ribs made breathing feel like a hostage negotiation. And my phone had buzzed itself to 94 missed calls overnight. I didn't answer a single one. Not because I had nothing to say, because I was saving it. Raymond Parker doesn't speak until the words are worth something. Ask anyone who's ever sat across a table from me. Ask the 17 people I've fired in 31 years. Each one got exactly 1 sentence. Not a syllable more. Friday was coming. I was saving my words for Friday. Denise arrived at 8:15. 61 years old. Silver hair. Originally from Galveston. She moved through the room the way experienced people move through crisis. No wasted motion, no performance. She shook my good hand, checked my chart, looked at me directly and said, "You sleep?" "Some. You eat." "Turner brought something last night." "Turner family." "Yes." I said it the way I should have been saying it for 20 years. She nodded like that was settled. By 9 she'd reorganized my medications, briefed 2 nurses, and reported a rattling ventilation unit above my bed that facilities had ignored for 6 weeks. It was fixed by noon. 9 years. $6,000 a month. To Gary. 45 minutes with Denise, and she'd already done more for me than he had in a decade. I didn't sit with that thought long. It had edges. Turner came back at 11 with 2 dark roasts from the place on Madison Avenue I'd been going to since 2004. No sugar. Splash of cream. He handed mine over without asking. Because he already knew. He'd known since he was 14, riding with me on Saturday mornings while I ran the books. Maggie used to say Turner absorbed information about people the way other kids absorbed video games. Completely. Permanently. She was rarely wrong about him. I missed her every single day. I missed her more when her son walked into a room. "How's the wrist?" he asked, dropping into his chair. Annoying. Denise seemed all right. She fixed the ventilation unit. That almost got a smile out of him. Almost. "Good sign," he said. We sat. No performance. No managed silences. Just 2 people in a room being honest about where they were. I hadn't had that in longer than I wanted to admit. "Your phone's been going off," he said. "I know. Gary. Mostly. Lucy called 8 times. I turned the phone over. 98 calls now. That tells you everything." Turner was quiet. Then, "What are you going to do?" "About which part?" He looked at me. "All of it." I set the phone down. "I've got a meeting with Arthur Simmons tomorrow afternoon." Arthur was my estate attorney on Peabody Place. $400 an hour. Worth every cent because he had no unnecessary opinions. The will's 17 years old. "Turner, I wrote it when I thought keeping the peace was the same as keeping the family." I stopped. "It's not the same thing," he said quietly. "No, it's not." He looked at the window. The Memphis skyline sat flat and gray in the midday light. "You don't owe me anything, Raymond. What you did after Maggie died." "Turner." He stopped. "Let me finish what I started." He held my eyes for a long moment. Then he nodded. Once. Picked up his coffee. I didn't know it yet. But that nod was going to cost him something, too. Gary called at 2:17. I answered. Not because I was ready. Because Wednesday at 2:17 was my time, and I decided that. "Dad." The warmth was gone. What was left was tight. Controlled. Ben called me. I imagine he did. The transfer didn't go through. That's correct. Maldives silence. The $1,200 a night kind. Then, is this because of the hospital? Because we talked? We didn't talk, Gary. You explained. There's a difference. Okay, that's not. A beat. By the pool. Of course she is. Put me on speaker. Dad. Gary. The quiet voice, the report card voice. Speaker. A rustle. Wind. Something expensive playing in the background. "You're on," he said. "Lucy." She came in sharp. "Raymond, hi. How's the resort?" "It's beautiful. I know exactly what you cover with it. I've known for 9 years. One more beat. Clean and final. We'll talk when you're back. Face to face. You can't just enjoy the Maldives, son." I hung up. Turner was watching me with something I couldn't fully name. Not quite respect. Not quite grief. Somewhere in between. Like a man watching another man finally put down something heavy he'd been carrying too long. "You good?" he asked. I considered it honestly. The wrist ached. The ribs ached. The kidney was still having its bad week. "Getting there," I said. He nodded, drank his coffee. Didn't push. That was the thing about Turner. He never pushed. He just stayed. And sometimes staying is the whole thing. At 5:30 he stood, put on his jacket. "I'll be back tomorrow." 7:30, before your attorney meeting. He said it like a schedule he'd already built his day around. Because he had. The door swung shut. The room went quiet the way rooms do when someone with actual presence leaves them. I looked at my phone. 99 missed calls. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean. Gary was doing the math. And I hadn't even started yet. Some men burn the house down when they're done with it. Not me. I hand over the keys to the right person. Let the wrong one find out from a courier on a Friday morning, and sleep like a man who finally settled a debt he's been carrying for 30 years. That's not weakness. That's 68 years of knowing the difference between noise and power. Gary made noise. 102 missed calls worth of noise. I made a Thursday appointment with Arthur Simmons on Peabody Place and signed 17 pages in blue ink. Only one of those things changed anything permanently. Turner showed up at 7:30, exactly like he said. No fanfare, no production, just a knock, Denise opening the door, and Turner standing there in his work jacket, with his car keys already in his hand. He helped me into a jacket, signed the temporary release papers while Denise rattled off a list of instructions he memorized without writing down a single word, and walked me to the elevator like a man who'd been doing this his whole life. Which, in every way that mattered, he had. The 09 Camry was in the third row of the parking lot, cracked side mirror catching the weak Thursday morning light. He opened the passenger door. Didn't make a thing of it. I got in. Memphis rolled past the windows. Orange Mound, where I'd raised him. Midtown, where I'd built the business. Downtown, where Arthur Simmons had been keeping my secrets and my estate in order for 22 years. Turner drove like he did everything. Steady, no unnecessary moves. Eyes forward. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. Arthur met us at the door himself. 70 years old, gray suit, the particular expression of a man who has spent decades knowing exactly what people are worth and exactly what they've done to deserve it. His office on Peabody Place smelled like old paper and serious money. The 17-year-old Will was already on the conference table when we walked in, laid out flat like a patient ready for what came next. "You've reviewed my notes?" I asked. "Thoroughly," he said. "You're certain, Arthur?" I looked at him across the table. "I've never signed anything in 22 years that I wasn't certain about." He almost smiled, opened his folder, and we began. I didn't know it yet, but Gary's flight had touched down at Memphis International 40 minutes earlier. 2 hours, 17 pages, blue ink, Parker Logistics, 31 years of before dawn mornings, brutal negotiations, one leased truck that became a fleet, my name on every contract and my fingerprints on every decision. Went to Turner. 70% controlling interest, effective upon my death or voluntary transfer. The remaining 30% went to a children's literacy foundation on the south side of Memphis. Maggie had volunteered there before she died. Used to bring Turner on Saturday afternoons when he was small. He'd sit in the corner reading while she helped kids with their homework. It felt right. It felt exactly like her. Gary received the lake house in Tunica. 3 bedrooms, good dock, $400,000 assessed value, a fair return for a son who'd done just enough to qualify as one. And then there was the letter, 1 page, my words, not Arthur's. Written Tuesday night in room 214, with my left hand because my right was braced, while the ventilation rattled and Memphis slept outside my window. Every sentence cost me something real. I wasn't cruel in that letter. Cruelty would have been easy, and I've never been interested in easy. I told Gary what 9 years of $6,000 a month had actually been. Not generosity, not love. Guilt. The guilt of a father who'd watched himself build a transactional son, and hadn't corrected it early enough and spent a decade writing checks instead of having the one conversation that might have changed something. I told him the checks were done. I told him I loved him. Because I did. Completely without condition, the way you love someone you made from scratch, even when they disappoint you in ways that take your breath away. I told him love and financing were 2 different things, and I was only responsible for one of them going forward. Arthur sealed it himself. Marked the envelope Gary, personal. Courier delivery Friday morning. 1 day. Let him sleep one more night, not knowing. Turner pulled back into St. Augustine's lot at 2 p.m. and killed the engine. Sat with his hands on the wheel. I watched the side of his face, Maggie's jaw, Maggie's stillness, and made myself say it out loud. You need to know what happened in there. Raymond, you're getting the company. The silence that followed was the longest of the week. Longer than any of Gary's pauses. Longer than the 2 hours in Arthur's conference room. Turner sat inside it the way he sat inside everything. Completely, without flinching, without performing a single emotion he didn't actually feel. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. That's too much. It's exactly enough. Don't argue with a man with 3 broken ribs. You didn't have surgery. I'm in a wrist brace. Don't split hairs with me. The real smile came then. Not the almost smile from Wednesday. The actual one. The one I'd seen maybe a dozen times in 36 years. Always at moments that genuinely surprised him. It lasted 4 seconds, and then it was gone, back behind the composure he wore like a second skin. Maggie would have had something to say, I told him. She would have cried first, he said. Then she would have told you it was about time. We stayed another minute in the quiet car. Then Turner got out, came around, helped me to my feet without making anything of it, and walked me back inside. I didn't know it yet, but Gary was already in the building. He was standing outside room 214 when we came off the elevator. Travel clothes, expensive carry-on, Maldives tan, The look of a man who'd cut a trip short and was working out how to be angry about it in a way that didn't expose how scared he was. Lucy wasn't with him. Smart woman, Lucy. She'd read the room from the car. He looked at me, looked at Turner, looked back at me. You changed the transfer, he said. Yes. You're changing the will. Not a question. Details travel fast in this city, they always have. We should talk inside, I said. We can talk right here. I looked at my son, 41 years old, linen shirt, jaw set the way mine sets when something is already out of my hands and I know it. He looked exactly like me. He'd always looked exactly like me. That used to fill me with pride. Standing in that corridor, it just made me profoundly bone-deep tired. Gary? I kept my voice the way I kept it in every negotiation that mattered. Flat, quiet, immovable. You flew home from the Maldives, which tells me you already know something has changed. A beat. What you don't know yet is how permanent. Then tell me right now. Arthur Simmons will walk you through everything Friday morning. There's a letter with him. I held his eyes without blinking. Read the letter before you call me. Before you call anyone. Before you do anything. Read it first. Dad, I love you. I said it clean. No cushion, no apology attached to it. I have loved you every day of your life, and I'll love you every day of whatever's left of mine. That is not changing. I paused just long enough. What's changing is that I'm done paying for the privilege of your attention. The words landed. I watched them land. Something crossed his face, fast like weather. Anger on top. Underneath it something raw, something that had the shape of shame and might grow into it someday, if he gave it room. He didn't respond. Turner opened the door to room 214. Held it. I walked through. The door closed. We didn't hear Gary leave. But after a while, the corridor went quiet and stayed that way. Denise looked up from her clipboard, read the room in 1 second, the way sharp people do, and said, "Dinner in 20 minutes. And this time, you're actually eating." "Yes, ma'am," I said. I sat on the edge of the bed. Turner took his chair. Memphis turned gold outside the window, that late Tennessee light that makes hard things look survivable. Maybe even worth it. Maggie used to love this light. My phone sat screen up on the bedside table. Still. Silent. No buzzing. No missed calls stacking up like unpaid debts. Just quiet. Clean and earned and completely mine. Parker Logistics had a future with the right man's hands on it. A letter sat sealed on Peabody Place. A lake house in Tunica waited for a son to decide whether what he'd been handed was worth more or less than what he'd thrown away. And Turner, 36 years of showing up without being asked, doing right in rooms where nobody was watching, never once presenting me with an invoice for any of it, was going to run a $14 million company. Because that's what happens. When you earn something, it finds you. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories.